When Keir Starmer came to power, he stood outside Number 10 and he talked about a government of service. It was a fairly good speech. We would all love for our politicians to serve us. And this is meant no way of criticism of the left. The left do have a belief in service. Unfortunately, when we look back over the last year, and let's look a bit further back because this is not a Labour problem. It's just they made such a fuss about serving everyone that it somehow hurts more when they don't seem very bothered about serving the people at all. So we look back over the last 14 months. We've had a minister who, okay, before she was a minister, but she pretended her phone was stolen and falsely reported it as stolen to the police so that she could defraud her employer out of the cost of a phone so that she could get a nice phone. You know, if you weren't an MP and you were an average Joe, you'd be doing time for that. You certainly never get a decent job again. You'd be flipping burgers at McDonald's, not sitting in a cabinet office. And it's not just some one-off. And there's cases where we can't say whether it's rubby money gathering or not. There's the anti-corruption minister who's accused and has I believe, an Interpol arrest warrant out for stealing millions of dollars and pounds from Bangladesh when her auntie ran it. But we can't say whether that's true or not. It just looks very embarrassing. She could well be telling the truth when she says that she didn't get a penny, but, the new government comes in and declares the old one corrupt. Well, there's places where that happens. I wouldn't want to besmirch her beloved Bangladesh the way she did. But, she knows more than me. And then we look at other ministers. Well, free clothes for the wife we never get to see so that she could wear them during the campaign that we never saw her in. Free glasses because, the likes of us have to go to Specsavers. But someone of that pedigree and importance has to have a pair of glasses that somehow cost thousands. Why, I'm not sure. They just look like perfectly normal glasses to me. I feel like a real peasant. Then we have poor Angela Rayner. God, every time she buys a property or sells property, her tax advisors give her the wrong advice. Oh no, don't declare that as your main house. Oh no, you didn't live with your family. No, make sure that you don't know the neighbour's lying when they say that you're a landlord. There's so many difficulties, it's hard to trip over your shoelaces so much. Oh no, declare that house is actually worth more than any of the other houses on the street, and therefore you can take more money out of the trust. But don't claim £1 more because that would get you into paying tax, and we don't want that, do you? Well, I don't blame her for having tax advisors, and I don't blame her for having tax advisors who try and minimise the amount of tax she pays. That's what the stinking rich do. And she's stinking rich, so why shouldn't she? She gets to play the game like they do. And really, I could go on all day, couldn't I? The MP who claimed thousands of pounds from the States that their dog could live with them, through to the Speaker of the House of Commons, who needs to go to all these pleasant palm tree lined beaches in the Caribbean so that he can see a parliament of 10 people who's existed for less than 2 decades and find out what the British Parliament can learn. I mean, gosh, there must be so much to learn from that dozen people who've been in the job for 2 terms. They must know more than the dozen MPs in Parliament who've been MPs for 3 times as long as that. You know, Diane Abbott could probably tell him more about parliamentary procedure and practice than the whole cabinet put together there. But don't worry, he also gets to go to Gibraltar. We pay for him to go to his paid job. Is that a bit weird? It feels a bit odd, doesn't it? Well, don't worry, he wasn't held to account on it, so he must have been in the right. And when you look at the Tories, it's no better. The rather dubious tax advice that was received in the sale of company, the Baroness who seems to have received millions for protective material during COVID. I mean, really, when you look at these people, and when I say these people, I don't mean the individual, I mean the whole of Parliament. It's quite easy to see this as a life of self-service. And if you look beyond that, service isn't just being elected as an MP. Service is being high up in a charity. I knew someone who was high up in a charity. I can tell you, he earned an obscene amount of money and had a very, very nice house and drove a very, very nice car and lived a very, very nice life. And he was a very, very nice person. Unfortunately, in the normal, real world, you'd have been expected to have some qualifications or mental acuity. Well, I say no more. I look at civil servants when they get called to answer questions before parliamentary committees, and they seem to have a mix of disdain and incompetence. They either don't know the numbers because they don't want to know them, or don't know the numbers because it prevents them from having to lie. Now, if this is service, what isn't service? And it's not a British problem. I look abroad, I look at America, and there are people whose net worth seems to be 10, 20, 50 times the amount of money they've ever earned. I mean, there's an obvious one where their partner has made more money from the stock market than probably anyone else with the same capital. Either they're the best investor on Wall Street, God knows why they didn't go into Wall Street, or they're acting on insider information. Now, it can't be that because no one ever takes action. Yet you probably know who I mean. I saw a video complaining about the amount of money that ex-prime ministers get from speaking and from sitting on boards and from writing books. Well, I understand that they seem to do extremely well. However, surely that's more of a bargain which is actually made clear. We pay you less than thousands of government employees, even though you're running the country. But in return, you're going to get a knighthood and you're going to be able to sell copies of your book. People are going to pay you stupid amounts of money to give a 5-minute talk. The problem is, it doesn't look like a life of service when so many MPs seem to be so lucky in terms of their investment, their tax efficiency, their properties, their lifestyle, their freebies. So is it really a life of service? Or should we be a lot less pompous and say it's a life of self-service where we benefit from their motivation to do the job? Because if it's the latter, then really it's just like any other job. Work hard, do well, get reward. And that doesn't seem so noble anymore. But it doesn't seem grubby. It just seems normal and a bit honest.